Hey guys, welcome to the new warehouse here at Momentum 2023. I'm here with Manhattan Associates, and thank you first for Manhattan for inviting me out and coming out here to check out the show. It's been great. I'm going to be joined now by Rob Schaefer. He is the VP of TMS Sales at Manhattan Associates. So, Rob, thank you so much for joining me.
Happy to be here.
Definitely happy to be here with you. So the big theme and momentum this year has been about unifying the supply chain. So we're gonna dive into that and find out what does that actually mean from Manhattan's perspective, and how is Manhattan's technology allowing for that to happen, and what does that mean when customers can potentially unify in the future? How is that going to benefit them? So Rob, why don't you give us some idea of when we talk about the unified supply chain? I mean, we see it everywhere here at the show, and I think every session and the keynotes are talking about it. So, tell us a little bit about, from Manhattan's perspective, what is the unified supply chain?
Happy to. So from our perspective, and I'll talk from the perspective of three basic application types, right? So warehouse management, transportation management, and yard management. So typically, prior to us, those were three applications that would generally not be integrated directly to each other, right? Maybe yard a little bit, but generally a TMS and a WMS were not integrated to each other. They were integrated through the ERP system, right? And then YMS might bolt onto the WMS. And the issue with all of that is that information is not shared in real time, right? So we thought, the best way to meet the challenges of today's supply chain, right, is to have a single application that does all of that, so that we can share information instantaneously between all the stakeholders of those three applications, right? So what I mean by that is, so you'll see, inbound shipments, right? You got people in the warehouse that need to see that, right? They need to know what's in the yard, when it's in the yard. On outbound shipments, right? They need to be able to plan those and let all the stakeholders know, what's happening. Generally, everybody has a plan at the beginning of the day, right?
Yeah.
And that usually goes out the window by like 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, it doesn't usually work that way.
A unified supply chain, because it's a single application, provides the visibility people need to know that there's a problem. Right. Because one of the big issues is if you don't have that visibility that a unified supply chain brings you, you don't know you have a problem until it's too late. Right. I don't know the shipment's not coming until it didn't show up. Versus knowing there was a problem with the vendor. Right. Type of thing. Or there wasn't inventory in the warehouse. Right. One of those types of things. So that's what the unified supply chain brings, is a unified view of those three applications, sharing information instantaneously and allow people to make decisions, and the agility that goes along with that. When there's an issue, how do I address it? What do I do? Who do I need to notify? And do all that stuff in real time.
Yeah, and I think it makes so much sense because, like you said, traditionally, I think it's operated in such silos almost, right? System silos. And like you said, you're finding out too late when there's an issue, right? You're not able to react in real time. And part of making that unified supply chain happen and work so well is being able to do those real-time actions and have that real-time visibility as well from the data of everything that's flowing in together. So tell us a little bit about how the Manhattan technologies are now coming together to be able to allow this unification and give a lot of that real-time visibility and actions.
From a technology perspective, is that what you're saying, or from the feature function application?
Sure. Give us from.
Okay, well, I can do both.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So from a functional flow,
Okay.
It's interesting is that if you think of inbound to outbound, right? You've got an inbound shipment, you've got a warehouse in the middle, you've got outbound and customers or other DCs on the other end.
Right.
It's interesting now that someone in a distribution center with the unified supply chain can see the inbound shipments and understand, are they on time, are they late, et cetera, right? And they can address or may change the appointment schedule that was originally set up. They can replan their labor inside that distribution center. And then on the outbound side, a transportation planner can look directly into the warehouse and understand, has something been picked? Has it been staged? Is it ready to go?
Yeah.
with the introduction of warehouse management as part of all this as well, it's a shared application between WMS and TMS. Now I can also share the information of what's happening in the yard, right? So I know in the yard is an inbound shipment can be on time, is it late, that it passed through a geofence, right? And when it passes through that geofence, warehouse knows, okay, that inventory just arrived. Is that a live load? What dock door should I put that on? And the yard management solution will actually leverage the put away rules of warehouse management. So it just won't put it on a dock door. It'll put it on the dock door closest to where that inventory is going to be put away.
Yeah.
Right. So we're driving efficiency throughout the entire process and allowing people to, adjust their plans as things happen. Right. So again, there's a tremendous amount of efficiency that is to be gained by having a unified supply chain.
Yeah. And I think it's such the yard management system too, which you guys just announced the new features this week. Right. And, it's really interesting to see. And I think that point there that you made about how, it's driving that trailer to the dock door that makes the most sense, closest to where that inventory is going to live. I think it's, it may seem, if you just kind of look at it, maybe it's like does that make that much of a difference? But it makes a huge difference, right? Especially the bigger your building gets, the more efficiency you're going to gain from that, right?
Yeah, and it does so, a large warehouse will have, multiple dock doors, obviously, right? Some of them are sometimes dedicated to live unloads, the other ones to drop trailers.
Right.
And yeah, you can adjust things, but that's generally done manually.
Yeah.
Versus in the unified world, you don't have to dedicate any dock doors to anywhere. The engine is figuring out where should this live load go, where should the drop trailer go. And then it's also doing some other really interesting things. It's keeping track of those trailers from a detention and demurrage perspective, right? So it knows, hey, there's a trailer that's been sitting out there, and it's going to go into detention here in 3 hours. Let's get that thing on the right dock door and unload it immediately, right, to eliminate this stuff. Because generally, most people find out they had detention and deterrage when they get an invoice, right? So they're like, hey, what was this for?
Yeah.
So we're really able to, again, drive efficiency and visibility and allow the system to make the right decisions.
Yeah, and I think it makes a lot of sense. And to your point about the detention, you're not even realizing it's going on until later on. And I think it's when you're unifying the supply chain like that and utilizing these systems to be able to do that and putting all these data sets together and having everything flow through in the way that it's supposed to flow, you're closing a lot of those gaps where, oftentimes people get too busy. Like you said, the plan in the morning is one thing and by 9 a.m. is, it's something else, right? So keeping track of those things, a lot of times I think, it falls to the wayside. So I'm curious, as Manhattan was developing this idea of the unified supply chain, what kind of, I guess, information were you getting from your existing customers where they were saying they're having these gaps and really kind of led you to put these things together and unify it?
That's interesting because for so long, warehouse and transportation did not talk to each other, right? Oftentimes, those solutions were from completely different software companies, right? So you had an ERP by one software company, WMS from another, TMS from another, and YMS from another, right? So, the challenge we just heard was, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing, and there's a lot of picking up the phone or email trying to figure out what's going on. So it wasn't real hard to figure out, hey, there's an issue there and a lot of efficiency to be had. But it was like, okay, to do that, someone like Manhattan had to make a significant investment in making that happen. And it wasn't just in feature function. It was to rewrite the entire platform that it sits on, right? Because that's the secret sauce to this whole thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's such it's a big undertaking, like you said, but I think it's so necessary to move operations forward because, like you said, it's too much back and forth. And, I come from warehousing background as a warehouse manager. And trust me, I've been on top of transportation before, like, where is this stuff at? And it's oftentimes too late, like you're saying. And a lot of times too, it's just, you're getting this information and you're getting it to the point, and by the time it takes you to get all that information and make the decision, like you're really not getting much optimization because you're already kind of past that opportunity
Yeah, now
window.
you're just reacting, saying, I just need to get it there, make it happen.
Yeah,
right?
you're just putting out the fire,
Yeah.
right, instead of preventing. So, I mean, how do you see kind of the progression of this? And I think too, it's important to note, like, with the Manhattan Active, right? I
Yeah.
mean, how important of a role does being in the cloud play in allowing for a lot of this to happen?
It's the heart of it, right? Frankly.
Yeah.
So what's the first thing that's interesting is, everyone talks cloud. Right? So first you have to define that, right? There's those that just say, I have an application, I'm going to host it somewhere else, so therefore it's in the cloud.
Yeah, it's just like,
kind of. But when we started rewriting the applications on the Active platform, we wanted to take advantage of the promise of the cloud, right? Meaning that we're going to have a platform where the application is elastic and can scale up and down based upon demand. That it is evergreen in terms of you're always on the latest version of the software, right?
Right.
So we deliver updates every 90 days, and we do that with zero downtime.
Yeah.
Right. So think about a warehouse, right? You don't want to have any downtime in your warehouse whatsoever.
No, downtime
right?
is a killer.
So there are a lot of folks out there that still have servers in their warehouses and all those sorts of things because they were afraid of the cloud and, hey, I'm going to do these updates and it's going to be onerous and I can do all this testing. So we went through the process of saying, okay, we're partnered with Google Cloud. We built this microservices platform. We can deliver these updates with zero downtime. We have no downtime built into our SLA for updates, right? So we deliver these every 90 days. They're delivered, turned off. I'll never say you don't have to do any testing, but it's limited because all we're doing is updating the individual microservices.
Okay.
Right. And we're not deprecating any functionality, anything. So we're not breaking anything when we deliver these updates. Right. And then given that all of these applications we were talking about, WMS, TMS, and YMS, are sharing those same microservices, right? They're looking at the same objects. That's what gives us that kind of real-time visibility into what's going on in our network. Right. So literally, it is the heart of it. You can't do it if you didn't have that type of platform. Otherwise, you would just be building integration everywhere.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it gives you so much flexibility, and like you said, you guys are pushing out updates every 90 days. Where what's been hearing here is, if you were to do that on non-cloud, right, you would be looking at, you wouldn't get that update for probably maybe a couple of years, right, when it would make sense for the company to make that investment. So the fact that you're pushing out new things all the time, I think just further unifies that supply chain overall. And makes a lot of sense, especially as the supply chain itself is rapidly evolving, and we're trying to figure out what does the future of the supply chain look like. As those things are changing, you want to be able to continuously bring those in and continuously improve on your systems and keep your systems up to date with your operations as well. So you mentioned something in there about scaling up or down, right? And I think oftentimes we're looking at, can a solution scale up with me, right? Because I'm always thinking I'm going to grow, right? But talk to us a little bit about the scaling down piece. How does that work?
Well, based upon demand, and I'm not a technical person, right, at all, but part of the Google Cloud is, as it's scaling up, we need more capacity. The system is monitoring itself, and if it needs to add more containers, by the way, I think that's the right term, it does that automatically. So that's how it scales up. But as capacity goes down and requirements decrease, those things will spin back down as well, right? Because
interesting.
And they might be used then for another customer, right? Type of thing. So that's kind of how that works. And then the other thing I was just going to say about the platform too is, and you kind of mentioned it, all this information that we're using and sharing, right? A lot of it all is contained within the application itself, right? But a lot of it has to do with collaboration with, vendors or partners or carriers or digital freight brokers and all those sorts of things. And the platform makes it extremely easy to integrate to all of those. We're an API first integration approach. We can certainly do other more traditional approaches as well. And then the last thing I'll say about the platform as well is we allow for extensions. Right? So, which is almost unheard of in the cloud in terms of if there's some secret sauce that you have for your particular company and the application doesn't quite have that functionality, you can build it yourselves, right? We can host it, you can host it somewhere else, but it doesn't preclude you from getting those 90-day updates, right?
Oh,
so it's architected very, very well to provide that flexibility.
Yeah, I think that's great having that flexibility with the unification. I mean, paired together, I think is definitely kind of that modern supply chain and
Mhm.
what people need. As we look at this unified supply chain, and if people are listening, watching, and they're interested to know, how what kind of benefits would they see if they approach unifying their supply chain? What's kind of some of the immediate payoffs they could expect in the future?
So, it's interesting. If you look at the three applications on their own,
Hmm.
right? So, all world-class applications. From a transportation perspective, we're always trying to drive the cost of transportation down, right? By
Right.
doing better optimization of your orders and mode shift and all those different types of things. If you look at the warehouse, we're always trying to figure out how do we get the most efficiency out of our labor, right?
Hmm.
Slotting,
Yeah.
how directed put away, all those sorts of things. YMS the same way, where do I put something in the yard? Where is it? What's on it? All that sort of stuff. When you bring them all together,
Mhm.
now you're getting even more efficiency, right? I can
Right.
be more
Yeah.
efficient with planning my labor in the warehouse
Hmm.
if I know where the truck is,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
When's it coming? When's it going to be on that dock door? What do I do? How many people do I need for inbound? How many people do I need for outbound? So if it's not talking to transportation, you're kind of guessing, right?
Yeah.
You're kind of saying, I know it's supposed to be here too.
Yeah.
I hope it's here too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So now
Yeah.
you become more efficient in the warehouse. On the transportation side, the usual flow is, you might send the orders to transportation. It does a preliminary plan. It throws it over the fence to warehouse. Warehouse kind of does a soft allocation, goes, yep, we do have these things. This is, the dimensions of it all. It goes back to transportation.
Right.
They do the real plan. It goes back, and then warehouse does its thing, right? All that's gone.
Yeah.
Right. So transportation is looking right into the warehouse and knows what's going on. Right. So we're saving so much more time.
Yeah.
Right. And then we're tending to the carriers, and we're letting everybody upstream and downstream know what's going on at the same time. So again, it's efficiency in terms of process. There's cost savings associated with that. Right. And we're delivering better customer service to the end user because they also want to know where their stuff is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think at the end, the customer is key, right?
Yeah.
So being able to have that visibility internally allows you to give that visibility that the customers are so hungry for and want to know, where are those orders at, and when are they really expected to arrive? Just like you want to know, when is my
Yeah.
stuff going to get to my warehouse, right? So I can do my work. So Rob, really interesting stuff to learn about this unified supply chain here. And I think we could definitely say here from Momentum that the future of supply chain is the unified supply chain. So thank you so much for tuning in and watching us. And Rob, thank you so much for joining me here at Momentum.
Thank you. I had fun.
There you go.
We